Hello, Rena.
Hello, Dr. Bach. I really
Welcome,
look,
everyone. Oh, go ahead, Rena.
I was just gonna say, I enjoy these conversations, and every time it's like, oh, I'm so excited to see you and say hi and talk about what's coming next. So, yeah.
I feel the same way. It's a lot of excitatory pleasure. Thank you for opening with that. Let me do my boilerplate for all of my audience. Welcome to a free association conversation between Rena Kay and myself, Dr. Bach Ho. We're both organic intelligence coaches. We help people reduce suffering and increase capacity to handle more in life with ease using the protocols of organic intelligence. In these live stream free association conversations, Rena and I try to aim both at people who are completely new to organic intelligence and people who already know its basics. We try to find the balance. Today, our topic is a deeper dive into orientation. I have a lot of questions and thoughts about orientation that I'd like to start exploring with you. Um, for to give just the introductory level exposition on orientation for new people to organic intelligence. Uh, Organic intelligence work increases your capacity, your ability to get more done, to process more information, to handle life, to process intensity, to get more done more easily. That's what organic intelligence work helps you do. And symptoms like anxiety, depression, stress, that kind of that is a result. Their decline is a result of increasing capacity. The two traits that that we want to stabilize in the biology that will then lead to a capacity increase are orientation and pleasure. Those are the two. Of these two, orientation is the most important. It's everything. There's a phrase in organic intelligence, orientation is everything. What is it? It's a form of perception. I'm going to restart that sentence and not you forget it. Orientation is connection to the environment through the senses. So just seeing, hearing, what are the other three? Tasting, touching, smelling. It's being connected to the environment through the senses. Why is it so important? It, to the degree you're oriented, you're able to connect to the environment through your senses. That indicates that intensity in your biology is stable and likely to modulate, go up and down, excite and relax optimally. And that optimal excitation and relaxation is what leads to capacity increase. So orientation and pleasure are the two conditions. Of these two, orientation is most important, so important that we just say orientation is everything. And I would like to throw a question. I had so many thoughts written down, and I'm just going to ask a question first instead of dropping content. Um, when I'm a professor, or when I when a new semester begins and I walk into the classroom for the first time, all the students look at me. They're staring. And of course, it makes sense. In a given individual's head, what might be going on. This is the professor. He will shape the pleasantness or unpleasantness of the experience. He controls my grade, or I believe they actually control their grade, but I think he controls my grade. Let me size them up. What's he about? Is this safe, threatening? They're staring at me. Are they orienting? Yeah. I can
Right.
keep talking, but if you want to take the
No,
baton, you're well. Yeah.
that's a great question, right?
Yeah.
Because clearly they are perceiving you. So in terms of their senses, there is the perception of how tall you are, how, what your body looks like. Do you what do they hear from you? All of these things, how are they getting them other than through their senses, right? So they're picking up information. And so, but so on that level, yes, orientation is happening, I would say, because they're taking in
Yeah.
information from the external environment. I think the challenge, and you asked the question, are they oriented, as if that's a state of being? And the question becomes, are they just taking in the information and it's just coming into their field of awareness and they're noticing that as perception? Or, as you mentioned, are there all kinds of thoughts going on? Like, are they assessing, is this person going to be a nice professor or a mean professor? Are they going to be hard to get a good grade from or easy to get a good grade from? My experience with philosophy, I don't know. I think I stink at philosophy. I'll never be good at this. I'm not. And so there's all these other thoughts and possibly emotions, right? Or they're imagining what their grade is going to be later, right? So there's all these other things that are happening that wouldn't be orientation experiences. So there would be perceiving things in the environment, but that's not all that's going on. And it may not even be primarily what's going on, right?
Uh, Feel
Good.
free to go. Okay. This is this is a can of worms in my mind. Uh, okay. Because I had so much material and it's coming up in exactly what you just said. First, you said I asked, are the students oriented? Did I say oriented or did I say orienting? And I was wondering
Oh,
what,
that's a
I don't
good
know,
question. I
because
did.
I think I said, are they orienting? But I don't, and well, one could wonder who cares why you up on this Bach, but there was something there like, are they oriented? Are they orienting? Which is our
Right,
topic. What the hell is orientation exactly?
right.
So one thing you said was they're orienting or tid. There's orientation there in the sense that there's perception.
Mhm,
So yeah, I begin with perception because I think perception is the genus of orientation.
mhm,
Uh, Perception is seeing, hearing, tasting, etc. Like I perceive, my eyes are open, I perceive stuff. Orientation in organic intelligence technically is, I think, a specific form of perception characterized by various features, including it's relaxed and unfocused. So, man, there's so much in my brain, Rena. I wish I could not be more relaxed, but anyway, um, so if you're angry at someone and having a verbal fight and staring them down, that would not be a garden. That would not be an example, or at least it would not be a garden example of orientation in the organic intelligence context. Orientation would be my eyes feel like they can roam around. I feel relaxed enough where the eyes can just move on, can look at a desk, at the sky. That's contrasted against a focused uh, orientation. I'm angry at this person. I want to annihilate them, so I'm staring at them.
mhm.
At the same time, that is still perception. You're seeing that person. So in some sense, could orientation, man. So if you imagine, okay, I know that the example of a couple fighting may be triggering, but it's the best one I have right now. So you're fighting with someone. So let's not let's do this. Someone is verbally someone is verbally abusing you, and you're currently in a state of, let's say, freeze. Our last topic. You feel shame, helpless, small, immobile, and they're verbally berating you. And let's say at some point, and your attention is very internal. You're barely aware of your surroundings. You're not even looking at them. It's very like, I'm being destroyed. I feel very small. And then somehow, at some point, you just snap. Maybe their verbal berating is so intense, or maybe been doing, oh, I work with a practitioner, and somehow something happens, and you suddenly come to life, and your eyes open, you look at them, you stare them down, you start cursing them, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. That would be anger, and that would be the fixated, focused gaze on them as opposed to interior intensity. I'm wondering if that is in some sense some orientation coming online, even though it's not the garden case of I see the sky, I see the birds, I hear the lawnmower, because the
Right.
attention is it, there's more environmental attention online.
Mhm.
Okay, can you go from there?
Yeah, you're so it's in some ways we're bringing up, is orientation yeah, like there is the state, there's the process, right? So orienting was the ing version, the more of a state of being oriented is a more all-encompassed kind of state. Regardless, there's going to be an awareness of what's happening. So if somebody is berating you and yelling at you and saying all kinds of really harsh things to you, that to be oriented would be to go, oh, this is happening. And what am I going to do to get out of it? Right? Like so there to be oriented would be aware enough to come out of the internal experience sufficiently to notice what's happening and then be able to respond accordingly. If it's an emergency kind of threat, like a survival threat, that's going to happen automatically. The flight or the fight will happen. And it doesn't require a whole lot of thinking. If it's not that level of survival, if it's more just your well-being level of what's happening, then even so there might be like, oh, there's action to be taken here. Like, do I need to listen to a person put me down, cut me down, all these kinds of things? And so it might be that you gave the example of fighting, right? So you kind of snapped out of it, or what you described as snapping out of it and then cursing at the person and like putting up a boundary in a sense, right? That's one option. Might be that your system kind of steps out of that internal state and goes, I'm leaving. Just walks out the door, gets in the car, drives away, right? That can be a process of being oriented to the circumstances that they are. Right. So it's a matter of what is actually happening in the environment. So there's a lot of people who are, um, if they're not oriented in a situation that's either threatening to their survival or well-being, they might just stay in it. Like there is no energy, there's no, capacity to leave or fight back in a sense, right? Like that would be not oriented. And to what you were describing before of what you're calling garden variety kind of orientation, which is more often our life is fairly neutral. Like if you think about that, an argument in a context of life, hopefully that's not a common thing, right? If it's a common thing and you're actually become more oriented, you'll find a way to get out of it. But the greater majority of our experiences is that we're not under threat. People aren't belittling us and yelling at us and screaming at us. That's not the norm of our experience. So I think part of what organic intelligence is trying to do is shift our awareness into what's actually much more of the norm. And unless we're in, really horrible circumstances, the norm is actually like things are reasonably okay outside.
I, I'm suspicious here of what you just said. I feel like, and by the way, what you just said is, what you said is, if someone's verbally attacking you, it would be oriented to recognize this and to understand what's going on and to figure out what to do. And that is a standard. And in the organic intelligence world, many coaches and maybe Steve, the founder of organic intelligence himself, would say what you just said. So what you said is very standardly, I think, said in organic intelligence circles, including maybe by Steve himself. And I'm suspicious here because I think that that understanding of orientation that you introduced, that other people use, including maybe Steve, of understanding the situation and meeting it, I think is a different concept or phenomenon from simpliciter connection to the environment through the senses. I remember, so I may be in a meeting where where people are a work meeting, let's say, and people are talking. Maybe they're yelling at me. Maybe there's someone's angry at me, yelling at me, or maybe no one's angry at anyone. They're just talking about a work meeting, like what do we do about XYZ issue? How do we increase sales on X? And I'm just not even paying attention. I'm staring at the sky outside. I would be orienting, but I wouldn't be understanding the situation. I'm not synced into the social situation.
Mhm.
So I think there's a different the issue of, does a person understand their situation? And there's a question of how would you, what assumptions are you making about what is the situation? Why is orientation attached to that? And is that a different concept or phenomenon from orientation that's connected to the environment through the senses? And is there ambiguity? And I remember in a session I had when I was a client, an OI coach, not you, was trying to support me in an OI way, and I presented a relationship situation to her, and then she said, "Well, you're oriented." And she meant you understand what's going on in the situation. I thought that's not the right. I'm suspicious of that understanding, and I think I think some coaches may breezily use that, or and I know it may come from Steve, but one should remember the main meaning of orientation is connection to the environment through the senses. Uh, yeah, do you have any?
Yeah,
That's yeah,
well,
yeah.
and I get what the concern is, right? So, and yes, there may be these steps, right? So this most simplistic way of saying orientation is that you're connected to the environment, or you're maybe, I don't even know if like aware of the external environment. And the only way that that comes is through the senses. So everything else is awareness of something internal. And so I think some of the key of orientation is is not so much on, are you having accurate assessment? In other words, that's kind of what I was suggesting a little earlier. You are suggesting that coach was saying, oh, you've got an accurate assessment of the situation. That's oriented. And yet, I think what I'm hearing you say is that orientation is simply the process of having our attention not on the internal of world of our images and our thoughts and our emotions and that kind of thing. It's not there. Our attention is external. And I think the key difference that Steve is often emphasizing is the external versus the internal.
Well, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead if you want
Yeah,
to.
before.
Okay. Um. Well, if we're doing a deep dive and trying to get at real technical accuracy, if we're really trying to get accurate, and I believe Steve has said this one, it's all internal. Orientation is purely internal in the same way that an emotion is, in the sense that it is an experience of consciousness. But we call it external because there's a certain meaning to that, which is the tree is out there and I'm seeing it. Now the experience is completely internal. It would be it would be inside my skin. It wouldn't be outside of my organism. So orientation is completely internal. Technically, exactly. And external is a term, it is used with reason to refer
Right.
to the internal is responsive to the external, right?
Right.
Now I'm a
And
little worried of how detailed, how,
yeah, I
yeah, yeah.
think there's also an emphasis to uncouple a lot of the meaning, also an internal experience, the meaning that gets attached to what we're taking in through our senses. So very rarely are we simply having the experience of noticing things, seeing things without the added layers. And of course, there's going to be added layers in terms of going, oh, there's a squirrel, oh, there's a sky. But there can be a state that is more just the experiences are in a sense flowing in and out of our awareness. But the challenge that I think organic intelligence is trying to deal with is the fact that there is so much unpleasant experiencing happening. There's so like the consciousness is tuned to give meaning towards all of these experiences through some kind of negative light, almost like there's a filter on our consciousness, and it's filtering through a yellow light or an orange light or a green light. And so in a way, it's somehow tainting our awareness of what's happening. And so I'm thinking about that in terms of like often when Steve's talking about orientation, he's like talking about let's see if we can find something that's, neutral or maybe even enjoyable. Well, why would that even be necessary to say? Like when we're saying as you're orienting, see how neutral or pleasant this is, that would be unnecessary if people were trending in that direction already. But they're not.
Yeah, you're saying that um, if you're looking at a pile of dirty dishes in your sink, or if you walk into your kitchen and you see a pile of dirty dishes in your sink, and then immediately thoughts and unpleasantness come up, thoughts such as, I should do the dishes, I'm too lazy, I don't want to, I'm such a failure, I never get anything done, I'm a loser. That would be orientation in a typical organic intelligence discussion would be being able to see the dishes in the sink just as that experience without that extra. I think that's one thing you were saying, right?
Right. Right.
Um,
And then the next
yeah,
step would
okay,
be
okay.
that the action in response, so the action of turning away and walking out the room and shutting the door, or the action of, say, just cleaning them, that those are just actions that will happen and could happen either way. Neither is right or wrong. And they're just happy. The more oriented the biology is, the more it's like, is now the time to do the dishes or not? And oh, okay, I guess I'm doing them. Oh, I guess I'm not doing them. There's a way that there's no added layers of trying to assess one's state somehow in relation to the dishes. So it's not like this, like you're
Yeah.
saying, I'm a bad person or I'm a loser or I don't make enough money to afford to pay someone to do them for me or like whatever the things are that come up, it
Mhm.
would either be, oh, there's a pile of dirty dishes. The energy seems to be there. I just start doing them and there's a flow to that. And I would say that's a more oriented state. Likewise, it could be that you see the dishes and whatever, it just really is like whatever, and you walk away and go do something else because you have something else that interests you. And that might be a totally oriented state too,
Right.
right? Because there's another draw that's of more interest. And the doing of the dishes will happen when they happen. To me, that's part of what I think Steve is trying to uncouple is all of the added layers on top of it that are creating states of unpleasantness.
Yes, orientation upheld as a neutral connection to the environment, a neutral sensory connection to the environment, which, and if you have that neutral connection, you're not plagued by unpleasant uh, thoughts and feelings, right? That's, yeah. With just about 5 or 6 minutes left, can I introduce another question? Unless you had something that you wanted to bring
Yeah, go
in for
for
the,
it.
okay. I once asked in a public Zoom meeting with a lot of people, is watching porn orientation, Steve? Because you're watching it. I mean, your attention is on the video or whatever. And he said, orientation is connection to the environment through the senses. So so that's the garden cases of oh, I hear the birds, I see the birds, I see the sky, and it's standardly distinguished from I'm watching TV, I'm watching a show, I'm listening to music. So I get that. So and often the TV shows, music are associated with pleasure, the second condition, and distinguished from orientation, which is just neutral. I see the sky, I see the birds. I get that I understand that as standard T or OI presentation. I'm wondering whether these what are called pleasures, they may be pleasures too, watching TV, listening to music, would be would be genuinely, really increased orientation relative to the attention being so internal that it can't. So I remember a friend was in a crisis and asked me to come over, and I came over and he explained the crisis, and it was very intense, and the intention, his attention was on his difficult situation. And after some amount of time, we were able to watch a show on Netflix, and sometimes he couldn't even watch the show was on, but he couldn't watch it. It was stuck in, am I going to jail? But then, um, but then for a few minutes, okay, I can watch the I can watch the show. So it seems to me that that is increased orientation, uh,
Right.
even though it's not the I can look at a blank white wall
Right.
and be totally chill, you know?
Yeah. I mean, to me, we can present these to Steve as well,
Yeah.
but to me, that is an increased state of orientation, which is why, like I was saying earlier, I see this more on a spectrum. So this idea that I am oriented or I'm not oriented is that's becomes problematic to have that dualistic notion, because truthfully, even if your friend is in this distressed state, so distressed that watching something on Netflix is too difficult, if there was suddenly a very loud noise outside, or if suddenly, all of a sudden there's this wafts of what smells like smoke were to happen, I can pretty much guarantee that in that moment, he would go investigate what's that smoke smell, or what was that? Was that a gunshot or fireworks? Or right? Like the
Yeah.
biology is going to rank importance, right? And so in some ways, yeah, the Netflix movie is not as important as the potential that this person had for possibly going to jail. But in that moment, if something even more extreme happened, that would draw his attention. And so to me, the biology is still going to, even if the attention is being drawn inward, part of the organization, part of our consciousness is still going to be paying attention to what's even going on in a further macro perspective.
Yes.
So that's also happening. And so I often want to help people realize, because, any concept can be used to shame yourself. It's like, oh, I'm not oriented. Well, I don't know that you can really say that in that way. You could maybe notice that I'm really stuck in a whole bunch of thoughts and emotions that's going on, and nothing else captures my attention sufficiently to pull me out of that. But if something were to happen that was of greater survival threat, their attention is going to go out. It'll go to that next thing. So, because I think, to me, my understanding is orientation is happening all the time. It's just whether it is happening so far in the deep, dark recesses that it's kind of buried at the bottom of the basement under, all kinds of old stuff, or is it much more front and present, and we're, tuning into it. Just like as I'm having this conversation, I can notice the picture on my wall, and I can notice the vase of willow. And that's there. I'm aware of it. Even as I'm talking, I can see that, right? That to me is orientation being much farther forward so that I can
Um,
have that at the same time. My understanding at this point, from what I remember, my brain isn't actually at the same time looking at you and looking at it. It just happens to be my brain is flipping back and forth so quickly, it seems as if it's the same time.
mm,
My understanding, but neuroscience might have updated what I learned in psychology way back when.
Uh,
Uh,
it's it's in degrees orientation, and that's standard organic intelligence teaching. Sometimes it's said if you can walk around your room without running into a table or a wall, you're oriented. There's some orientation, and organic intelligence supports the amplification of this state for the purpose of increasing capacity. Well, we started the topic, which I enjoyed, and we're on time now. So maybe we'll continue next week or in coming weeks, different aspects of this topic. Um, oh, I would like to give my boilerplate ending, and then we'll call it. To learn more about either of us and the coaching we offer, there will be links in the description. To learn more about organic intelligence, you can read my writing on Substack, link in the description, and explore my video library on YouTube, including the short videos. I meticulously craft my Substack posts and YouTube videos to present substantive content that's direct, clear, and concise. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Rena.